Here we are. Hello and welcome to the 7th in our 16-week series of audio-enabled EDA STEP workshop sessions. We're glad you're here. My name is Annette and I'm in full recovery from an eating disorder. Before we get started, a few caveats. This session of the EDA STEP workshop is being recorded. We hope to make audio recordings of the workshop accessible. This session of the EDA STEP workshop is being recorded. We hope to make audio recordings of the workshop accessible to everyone. Please note that these audios will not be available on the EDA website until they've gone through the full vetting process. We will, however, be sending information about the recordings to the General Service Board distribution list. If you're not on the list, please drop a line to Service Board distribution list. If you're not on the list, please drop a line to info@eatingdisordersanonymous.org and we'll get you added. A reminder, listening to a recording is not a substitute for attending EDA meetings or working the steps. We encourage you to check out our meetings pages, which include face-to-face, online, and teleconference meetings. Just the EDA group, which you're about to hear, reflects experiences and opinions of individual EDA members that may or may not tally with your own. Please take what you can use and leave the rest. You do not need a sponsor to attend this workshop. We'll all be working the steps of EDA together, myself included. To make things easier for everyone, we've muted everyone as they join. If you would like to be heard by using *6 on your phone or Alt-A if you're using a computer, you can mute and unmute using the same key combination, Alt-6 or Alt-A or *6. Because there are so many, we won't get a chance to introduce ourselves. However, if you're speaking, please tell us your first name and where you're from. Last week, we introduced different ways of working Step 4, and we talked about the importance of honoring our own truth and using our new foundation to develop solutions. We reflected on selections from pages 132 to 137, and we agreed that the two main points of Step 4 include establishing a list of flaws in our thinking, areas where we've been caught short in the past so actively, and to define a new plan of action for how we would like to respond to each familiar provocation in the future. With Step 4, we're planning exactly how we will act, not react. We introduced the 8 topics covered in EDA's Step 4: resentment, fear, self-pity, shame, guilt, harms done, confusion, for pages 138 to 140. We then briefly explained the brainstorming process and described how to complete the inventory pages on pages 141 through 148, the resentment example, focusing on the importance of the resolutions, what we're willing to do today, and what we might hope to be able to do in the future. Then brainstorming and writing out our 4-step resentment inventories. Then we'll reflect on the fear readings and discuss how we work Step 4 on fear. After that, we'll hear some of EDA's sponsors addressing some of the questions that sponsees typically ask. Right now, I'd like to ask anyone on the call who sponsors others in EDA to yourself, so we may call on you during the EDA during the Q&A session. Now, this doesn't imply that you're necessarily accepting new sponsees. However, if you are, that sure would be great to know. If you want to sponsor, please let us know your first name and city and write in to sponsors@eatingdisordersanonymous.org. So city and write in to sponsors@eatingdisordersanonymous.org. So I'm going to go ahead with, my name is Annette. I'm in full recovery and I do sponsor. In the room we have
Giselle R. or Giselle B. I'm in full recovery and I sponsor.
I'm Rebecca. I'm in full recovery and I also sponsor.
on the phone.
Hi, this is Diana, and I'm in Lubbock, Texas, and I'm fully recovered from an eating disorder.
I'm recovered from an eating disorder, and I sponsor.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm in full recovery from an eating disorder, and I sponsor in Covington, Louisiana.
Hi, Michelle. Hi, we're having trouble hearing someone. If you're not speaking, please mute. Thank you. Any other sponsors for our panel? All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I have a PowerPoint deck. Go ahead and get started. I have a PowerPoint deck which I'm not really going to be able to display for you. I'm so sorry. But we're going to go ahead and review our step 4 resentment inventory homework. So to start off, we reviewed brainstorming. So we talked a little bit about like the kinds of things in terms of our regular relationships with people, social media, employers, institutions, principles like fake it till you make it, and live in my house, follow my rules, and that kind of stuff. We also then talked about the importance of just keeping it simple, like picking the top 10. Then we worked on pages 10 and 11, going through the 5 columns. So if you don't have a copy of the workshop worksheets, please reference the EDA homepage, which is on www.foreda.org. On that homepage, and we'd like to have everybody kind of follow that pattern, even though there are other ways of working the steps, and none of them are necessarily wrong, although I personally have found wrong ways to do it. So I'd like to ask Giselle to speak a little bit about her experiences working step 4 is resentment inventory. Giselle, are you ready? Here you go.
And when I did my resentment list, I did do the brainstorming. I've done quite a few 4 steps, and I still have quite a few on it. But I did the brainstorming, and then it was basically about the same amount that I added to my 4-step page. I mean, good. And one thing that somebody had said that really stuck with me, and this might help people do the resentment, is anything I listed on there, does it make me re-feel? Does it make me re-feel the anger or just any of the caca feelings that come up, does it make me re-feel that? And so I put those down. And the way I was taught is you list all those on the source. You list every one of them down, all the way down, all the way down. And then you go over to your reason and cause, all the way down. And then you go over to your reason and cause. And you want to be simple. You want to list, like there was a guy at work, and every time I talk about him to somebody, I re-feel that anger and resentment. And so I listed him. And I feel that anger and resentment. And so I listed him. And I have to list what exactly it is. You don't just, you have to make yourself think about it and write it out. And even as I was writing it out, it made me actually feel a little better. Just because I have to own it. I have to own what I feel a little better. Just because I have to own it. I have to own what this is making me feel. And so I list, this is a work thing. He's violating SOP, and he caused an investigation, and he didn't apologize, and then I go down all the reason and cause for all of the things I listed on the source. I don't stop. I list all the reasons and causes. I go down, I have TSA management, this is a work thing. And I have several from work. I have a big company I work for, and I've had myself on my 4-step every time, and it's okay. It changes a little bit, but I still have myself. And so I go down and I do the reason and cause for every one of them. The reason is and she went after me and doesn't even know me, I just list all those down. And then I go up to my at risk, affects my, what's at risk? And for almost every single one of these, my self-esteem. You want to look back of the self-esteem, pride, ambition, finances. Those all make sense. This might take a little time, but you want to go back and you want to read all those. And the way I did it is because I have them all listed. I go back and I go, okay, which ones affect my self-esteem? I tried to make, which ones affect my self-esteem? Well, okay, almost all of them, and even the ambition and security, those are on there a lot. And I start looking at, there's a what's the word? Oh, there's a cycle. There's a, what's the word?
Pattern.
Pattern. Yes, there's a pattern. you know, I get my self-esteem hit a lot, you know, and my security, my finances, you know, and I look back and I see which, I look back at my list. I go back, I see which, I look back at my list. I go back to my list, you know, what things are affected by my finances, you know, and I go back and I go, okay, this, my finances are included in this, you know, am I not getting something I want? Is it taken away from something I don't have? You know, am I not getting something I want? Is it taken away from something I don't have? You know, the idea that I want it, you know, and I look at my sexual and intimacy needs, you know, and that ends up being on there as well, quite a bit, just because I'm, you know, we're needy people, and we have to accept people, and we have to accept what are at risk, accept the things that are at risk, and just accept these things. It's okay that we're looking at us. That's one of my major scared and in fear of looking at myself and what were the root causes, and this really breaks it down and simplifies it if I just keep it simple. And then I go over to my error, my part, and that's and but I just do the same thing. I go back and I look at the list of things, you know, the self-seeking, the selfishness, and I had to read those things over again a couple times, the self-seeking and the selfishness, because I'm like, what's the difference? Well, they are a lot different. The self-seeking behaviors when we act out in order to gain advantage over others, you know, and they have an example on there. If I ask somebody, hey, do I look fat? You know, I'm expecting them to say, no, you look great. You know, I'm self-seeking, and I don't need to be like that. And selfishness, being concerned with our own needs while ignoring the needs of others, you know, and I have the difference, and I have to accept that these are the areas that I have to list down. And so then I go over to, let me find my page again, the resolution. And the resolution is actually a really good part. That's the best part of it, because what would I do if I were actually healthy? What would I do in this situation if I were actually, you know, doing the right things? You know, what does that look like? What does it look like to have integrity, honesty? And then what could I do? And write that down. Okay, with Leonard, what could I do? And write that down. Okay, with Leonard, I could be a little more graceful with him. I could be a little more gracious. You know, instead of biting his head off and thinking he owes me, just keep to my side of the street. You know, keep to what I'm looking at. You know, I can't side of the street. You know, keep to what I'm looking at. You know, I can't change him. I can't make him do anything. What can I do? And that's all I can look at. And if I keep looking at his side and what he's done wrong, I'm never going to get past my own. And it takes too much energy to never going to get past my own. And it takes too much energy to look at theirs. I have to save my energy for me. And so the resolution part, you know, and I have myself on there, you know, and is pay more attention and take care of me, you know, and I have to, with the resolution, these can be simple, you know, just get back to the ABCs for myself and take care of me. If I'm hungry, eat. If I'm, you know, I have to pay attention to that HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, you know, and that's the basic part of me. And that's the resolution part. It's on there as a resentment. I still have him on there. He sucked as a dad, and he still sucks, you know, but those are just, and so he's still on there, and it's frustrating, but I haven't gotten over it yet, you know, because I'm still a kid sometimes. And so I edit and go, okay, what do I need to do different? What's my resolution? Well, I can look at him as a person and not always as my dad, you know. Same with my brother, you know. My resolution is I can look at them as not just my dad, not just my brother, not just my friend. You know, part is looking at them as just people, and sometimes sick people, and I have to treat them as sick people, you know, so keep the resolution simple. Keep each of them simple and get past it. Don't dwell on that one too much. Beginning, I think I spent too much time in one area and I got myself stuck, and you end up in a dark place if you do that. If I did that, I would end up in a dark place. We don't need to do that. This is for your growth. This is for healing. And so look at it as that. And don't worry if you're behind. Don't worry about it. It's all good. You have the rest of your life. Just make an attempt and get going on it. And that's all I have on that.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Giselle. Really appreciate hearing from your personal experience. Hooray. So a key point that you made from your personal experience. Hooray. So a key point that you made was that we really need to keep, this is our inventory, not the other guys, right? And one of the things you also brought up was taking a kindly and tolerant view of others. This comes straight from their AA original text, page 69, and other parts of the AA text, as well as page 226 and 27 from the EDA Big Book. We asked God to mold our ideals and help us live up to them. Whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific ideal turns out to be. We must be willing to grow toward it. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it. In each situation, we ask ourselves, what helpful attitude can we now adopt or hope for? What does a kindly or tolerant view of other people or our situations? What might that look like in action? What should I be doing? So instead of my inappropriate reaction, the next time we experience this feeling of resentment. So I filled out my resentment piece, and I also had a long list, and I showed up in like 8 places. I'm like, no, I'm not ever short of resentments. But I've also asked a few other people. We're going to talk about the questions that come up for the resentment inventory, but tonight's focus is actually about fear. And so we're going to switch now to Michelle, who's prepared some about our reflections on EDA Big Book pages 149 to 150 in Appendix D, which are some examples of fear inventory sections. So that's page 528 to 531. So Michelle, are you ready?
I am. Y'all can hear me, right?
Yes, thanks, Michelle.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Help. So what I did is I have the slides. I know you said you couldn't project them, but I'm going to kind of bounce between the slides and what I pulled from the book. And I'm going to flip between reading like it sounds like I'm reading from the book and my use of the word I, because that's just how it works for me. So one of the things I loved kind of as a starting place to consider when I looked at my fear was in the book, it talks about fear as a complex emotion that can prevent us from seeing the truth about myself and others in the context of our lives as a whole. When we perceive a threat to any aspects of life that matter to us, we are likely to respond in ways that do not reflect the person we want to be. And I love that. I just love that. It just kind of like summarizes things for me. It talks about fear as skewing perception, right? So I react, and that's never been good for when I just react. And I'm reacting from a place of selfish protectiveness rather than empathy and compassion. Again, in the book, I read about the importance of my recovery, to recover, is taking small risks to build trust with myself and others, right? That's what it's all about. And fear just prevents me from doing that. And the book talks about looking at fear thoroughly as an important part of inventory, because fear is a big part of our lives, not only as specific, but also as pervasive anxiety. I really identified with that. And the book talks about it's often related to failed self-reliance and the lack of control over things related to me, but also lack of control over just being a human member of the human family or life on life's terms, like getting older, death, accidents, etc. The book talks about, no matter how our ED manifests, most of us find balance and moderation with food challenging. The fear of gaining or losing weight, letting go of all that, and all that, and just the tendency of our thoughts to go back to old patterns whenever we are anxious. I love our book. I love our book, and I love the fact that it talks about food, intimacy, and exercise, and attitudes toward them, and then it offers perspectives that help me reframe my perspectives that help me reframe my thinking around these. Like, I love the idea of, like, just food is nutrition, right? Like, my responsibility is taking care of my well-being, and, you know, eating healthy food when I can, and when I don't, you know, what a concept to recognize that my body might need things that I might not appreciate, and body might need things that I might not appreciate, and let it go. Other similar, like, reframes on intimacy and sex, about respecting the power and importance while enable us to care for ourselves and others in a safe and authentic way. Again, rational guidelines, consulting with a doctor with exercise, right? Avoiding extremes, and reminding me that in recovery, I need to be mindful of balance and moderation, but also to appreciate that when extremes go on, it's extreme behaviors or sometimes extreme emotions, that those are just messengers. Like, it doesn't have to be some better options, have better options. And I really identify too with the big fear that the book talks about, that I would be even more miserable, anxious, and unhappy if I stopped engaging in all forms of my eating disorders, right? And that fear was huge, because even though for a long time I didn't want to engage in my eating disorder, right? And you know, I love, like, the reference to the FEAR acronym, right? Face everything and recover. And that's so true. Like, that's how I build trust with myself. And in inventory, I start to see that food is only a distraction, right? So this inventory and taking a look is just gathering information, and it's a key to freedom. And in turn, like, facing these fears is a way in which we grow and recover. And again, to notice that sometimes when these emotions come up, as well as some extreme behaviors, that attention to taking care of some of my basic needs. Maybe I need to give some more attention to my connection with my higher power, or more attention to my serving a greater purpose, or something else might be going on that I just need to take a look at. So there's an excerpt I also really like. There's so much I like. But if we trust, think is the right thing, we will have to trust that the outcome will be okay, even if it terrifies us or feels wrong at sometimes. So sometimes my trust is about, and it talks about this later, when it talks about people with integrity and dignity, it talks about what would they do if they found the courage to act. My trust is about, and it talks about this later, when it talks about people with integrity and dignity, it talks about what would they do if they found the courage to act despite my fear. It's in both of those sentences, the idea is that I can still have fear and act to good purpose. I can still take care of myself and be afraid. In both of those sentences, the idea is that I can still have fear and act to good purpose. I can still take care of myself and be afraid. You know, I just learned how to walk through fear. And I love that idea, because fear for me used to be a prison. And like, my eating disorder was a prison, and it's not like that anymore. I love when it talks about, you know, considering errors in our thinking and identifying attempts to control and what is not ours to control. Where have I allowed thoughts and actions to be ruled by fear when I knew I should have done something else instead? And relying on perspective by my higher power or higher purpose, right? And remembering again that fears exist for a good reason, to help me focus on what really matters. And in situations, to ask myself what a person of integrity would do. And I love the fact that it goes back to that fear, the fear prayer in the big book too, is a resolution where asking my higher power to remove my fear and direct my attention to what HP would have me be, and to make that conscious decision whether to set aside my fear or make use of it in some way to initiate changes. Listing now what I should do in response to eat, a big, powerful thing, because in my eating disorder, doing the same thing I always did, I never could see a different way. And this is a way of me thinking in advance of considering options. So when I'm in that situation next time, I have some things to try, kind of like right there to try. and there are tools that offer avoiding modeling behaviors that are rigid, restrictive, or excessive. Reminding myself of my gifts, right? People who love me aren't going to care necessarily about my body size, but they're going to care about whether I'm taking care of myself, and don't want me to hurt myself. And then again, taking care of myself enough so that I can have enough energy, focus, and balance to do what needs to be done every day, to be of service, and to trust that I'll be safe. In doing so, getting the tools to learn that I can trust myself and the world that I live in to be safe. And the book talks about, and it's pulled in one of the slides, and I really like this because I'm going to just read it real quick, and I know I'm running out of time. Although we may be able to define resolutions that should allow us to respond with grace and dignity to situations, this does not mean we have the power to carry that out. That's the point of the rest of the steps. You know, this isn't color by numbers. There's something else at work, and I don't know how to explain it. All I know is I just need to do take the action. And what I also love, and I promise I'm getting to the end, to me, and I'm not like saying these are the promises on page 153. I'm just saying these are the promises on page 153. I'm just saying when I read these, they seemed a lot like promises to me. And it talks about we learn to be accountable to ourselves and to others because this restores our integrity and objectivity. We need these to break free of our old patterns. When we take care of ourselves so we can move beyond our immediate concerns to things that matter in the long run. As we gradually come to rely on something greater than ourselves to bring peace and perspective, we are able to, basically, in short, our relationship to food changes. We are restored to health and balance. And to me, that is so huge. That addresses one of my big fears that I have. I'd kind of continue with the same thing that we did with inventory back to brainstorming. You know, the book talks about death, illness, insanity, and abandonment. The examples on pages 528 to 531 are great. They cover such a good range, death, control. So that's kind of where I am with the reading. And I know I've talked for a while. So I had one example, but I think I'm gonna pass and let somebody else kind of talk about their experience now. So thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Michelle. We really appreciate it. And it sounds like I've got feedback. I'm not sure what that's about. Anyway, all right, sounds better now. What I'd like to do now, we haven't had a lot of time for questions and answers. We do have a lot that people have brought up. I'm going to try holding the microphone differently because it just seems weird. I don't know what's up. Microphone differently because it just seems weird. I don't know what's up. But okay, so we do have examples of the fear inventory, and I need to point out that of all of the things, don't turn that off, of all of the things in the example inventory starting on page 526, fear is side-to-side pages. So it's really 4 full pages of fear examples because so much of our lives are riddled with fear. We're filled with this pervasive anxiety. I mean, I couldn't let go of, the idea of letting go of my eating disorder brought up fear. The idea of doing this with the steps brought up fear. It's like, oh my God, what kind of, fear that, if I'm surrendering all of my, the me part, what's left? So just having enough faith by watching what other people do and trying to have this sense of well, it's not all going to be over in a day, because I want an instant solution. Impatience is one of my major flaws, and it's that I just won't have the stick-to-itiveness is a problem too. So all I can do with these things is just list them out, get it off my chest, and in step 5, we'll talk with people about it. So the main thing here is keep it simple. Just get it done. Because one of the things that a lot of sponsees get stuck on is just getting it. Just do it. All right. So the other thing is I know we talked about this last time, but many sponsors in EDA recommend that their sponsees start with step 10. Rather than launch straight into a step 4. Step 10 is like a mini intro. It's like a mini step 4. So that is something that people ask about, like, why do we have you do that and how does that work? Readings, I don't know if everyone did those, but the intros to step 10 actually are like a gentler approach, because we focus on balance. If you're really working through your fourth step, it can be very scary, like a lot of negativity, because it brings up all these ways in which you're wrong, It's like, God, I got expectations, ways in which you're wrong, It's like, God, I got expectations of my husband and my kids that just aren't reasonable. I've got, things that I'm demanding from life that, gosh, I may never get. I'm not going to get what I want. There's all these things that it's depressing. So I do really encourage everyone to, there's all these things that it's depressing. So I do really encourage everyone to look at step 10, and because a lot of that is really about finding, I don't know, joy in just being, connecting to things at an intimate level. It's like touch and sight and just in the moment, because we need that every day, whether we're doing a step 4, whether we're sponsoring, or wherever we're at in our lives, just reminding ourselves of the right decisions we make. And one of those is focusing on what's going right, keeping it positive. When you're working a step 4, that can be a real challenge. Okay, so we can look at some of the examples, but I'd really rather turn it over to the sponsors. We have some questions, and I'm gonna read those out, and then we're gonna go to some of the sponsors and see how they would like to answer those. So one of the questions is, how long does it take your sponsees to work step 4? How long does it take your sponsees to work step 4? Who would like to take that question? Star 6 to unmute. Okay. Did I lose everybody? Are we still connected?
Hi, this is Leslie.
Hey, Annette. Oh, sorry.
Hi, Leslie. Sorry. Yay. Okay.
Whoever else was responding.
Go ahead, Leslie.
Okay. So how long does it take? It's although I have worked it in other programs before doing it here, step 4 can take a long time. I really like the way EDA manages step 4 so that it can be done quickly. And EDA, it's really important to get through it really quickly. Not really quickly, but quickly, briskly, because this is where the relief comes. Like when we see our part in all of the things that we have resentments in, it's such a relief. So getting through that and like really learning it's like a master key. It's like magical, because it opens up our lives so that we're not victims anymore. And so doing it as quickly as possible, steadily, not rushing through it, but doing it thoroughly but quickly, I think is good. So, doing it thoroughly but quickly, I think is good. So, it's done in a weekend in the weekend EDA workshops, or it's done in a day. Here, it looks like we're taking, 3 weeks for it or something. But I think it takes however long it takes, but quicker the better. It takes however long it takes, but quicker the better.
Thanks, Leslie. Anybody else on the phone? So I really like to get through step 4 rapidly. There have been times I've done step 4 with sponsees where they've just kind of like we do it on an ongoing basis on like a weekly call. And that typically will take us maybe 4 or 5 hours to get through. They'll do the writing, and then we'll hear it out. So it kind of works like a step 4 and step 5, but there are many different ways. And honestly, when I do them personally and when I take other people through them, I often just have them spend like 1 week on the resentments, 1 week on the fears, and then 1 week on everything else. And things come up many different ways. The same thing comes up again and again. It's like, dang it. But it's because I need to be thinking. And, me personally, I need to know, like, okay, a lot of the stuff is based in self-pity. It's like, Poor me. Well, you know, you hear about that in other programs too. It's like, poor me, pour me a drink. Well, but in expressly, like, look at despair. I had to look at frustration and fear and all of these things in every aspect of my important relationships, and in the context of my work, in the context of me as a child, me as a mother, me as a spouse. So it was really important for me to look at the. It really should. I mean, if I take more than a month, I just get depressed. So my guidance to everybody is try to get over it, try to get through it. So the next question, if anybody else would like to answer this one, is, what do you tell your sponsees who are just getting started on step 4? What's most important for somebody to know? I'll try.
Hi. I think one of the most important things is, a lot of times, I think with writing as a whole, a lot of us are perfectionists and we don't even know it. So the important thing, I think, is to just start writing. And even if it's just, I'm going to start writing about why I didn't like that TV program, or why I did, or just start writing and kind of get the brain going and get the creativity going. And then, you know, use the workbook and do the steps. And I think that it'll flow more. I think if we turn it into feeling like homework, we're right back into the feeling like we're in high school again, or we're in college again, or we're doing work homework, or feeling like we're in high school again, or we're in college again, or we're doing work homework, or something like that, when really it needs to be something that you look forward to and is enjoyable. Although it may cause pain, in the end, it's the outcome that we're going for. And to get to the good, you have to go through the bad to get there. And to get to the good, you have to go through the bad to get there. And so, even though I think we're fearful of the feelings that it'll bring up, you obviously don't want to do it when you're in a bad place, but that's the time to call your sponsor and have them help you through it and help you get started. The other thing that I find always worked for me was just making sure that I just grabbed a notebook and started writing. I never used the sheets themselves, just so that there's no running out of space. It's just, if I need another notebook, I need to start writing on the back of grocery lists, I do that. But I think the important thing is to just do it, and just to start writing and be surprised with what comes out.
Thanks, Rebecca. We haven't heard from Diana. Would you care to talk a little bit about?
Yeah. Hi, this is Diana. I'm fully recovered. I would just say what Giselle was talking about earlier is just keep it simple and just keep moving, because I think it's really easy to get caught up on just getting stuck. I don't know what I'm doing, and just giving up. And yeah, you're going to talk about that in your 5th step. And so just doing the best you can, relying on the foundations you've set in steps 1, 2, and 3, and just keep moving forward. Because I just stop because I can't think of the right thing to put down, or I'm just so worried that I'm going to leave something out and I'm not going to do it perfectly. But you'll have an opportunity to address anything you leave out in step 10. So if you're just doing the best you can and honestly putting whatever is coming to mind on paper and just keep moving forward, it's going to be effective. So just keep it simple and just keep moving forward. Like, that's all you can do with this step.
Thank you, Diana. Anybody else want to address that question? What's most critical about getting started with step 4? Okay. Next question is, for those of you who've worked step 4 in more than one step. Michelle, you want to look at that one?
This is Leslie. I'm willing to take a stab at it.
Go ahead, Leslie.
Right.
So I've worked the steps in, as I mentioned, in other programs. And what I can see the difference is with step 4 is in EDA is the rapidity, because also in Al-Anon, and that took, like, there wasn't as much of a forward momentum in that program as I feel in this one. And then also the fifth column is a way that I've seen in EDA that's slightly more than what I've seen in what I've done in Al-Anon and in a couple of other programs that I've worked in, because, you know, multifaceted with my addictions here. Yeah, and then just the specificity around eating disordered behavior, like it's like a flavor that's on this inventory that's different from working in other programs.
Anybody else on the phone want to address that specifically? Like, what's different between EDA's 4-step and other ones?
My name's Lee.
Hi.
Can I answer that?
Hi, how are you?
Not the first time in this program. I like the way you're doing it through this very quick process. You know, it's great to, okay, I need to get through this bit in a week. But I like the fifth column very much, the resolution. That's sort of addressed in other programs, I think, through steps 6 and 7. But I like the way it's done as part of a 4th step in this very much. But otherwise, you know, the other columns are pretty much the same. And what is nice for me doing it, you know, for about the 6th time in a different program is, you know, a resentment list is actually, I mean, there's plenty on it still, but it's a lot shorter than it used to be. So that's nice that I have the demonstration of some recovery in other programs as far as resentment goes. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate hearing from you. This is Annette, still in full recovery from an eating disorder, and breadth as well as the depth of coverage. Because if we're writing about 8 different topics, and we're, you know, even if we're only picking like the top 10 in each category, that's still 80 different topics, you know, at least. And for me, that feels really thorough. And I feel really like empty by the time I'm done. So that part's I wanted to point out that the 5th column is actually referenced on page 69 in the AA Big Book. I think we've mentioned that in this workshop before, but it really isn't explicitly shown in the example in the AA text, but it's referenced. So all of those columns, like the who or what, the reason or cause, the my error or my part, and then the last part is really on page 69, specifically with respect to sex, but it actually asks us, like, what should we have done instead? That's the resolution. So what would a person of dignity and integrity do under this circumstance, even if we can only imagine it and we really are completely confident that we can't do it? Because even if we can only imagine it and we really are completely confident that we can't do it, because really that is the point of the rest of the steps. And I honestly, you know, in going through these things, like sometimes this stuff comes up again and again and I'm like, dang it, you know, I thought I had that down, but clearly not quite. And so one of my, awarenesses with EDA is just the importance of remembering my contribution to all of the recovery parts and recognizing that I'm doing this and I'm discovering things about my emotional responses to life that are important. I'm opening myself up with this whole step process to become somebody that I respect more, somebody that I think I'm supposed to be, somebody that, you know, that is working towards being the kind of person that I'd want to be in a relationship with. And all of that really is, it's challenging, overwhelming. So when I'm working with sponsees, I really, I ask them to take it easy. You know, I want to go at things hammer and tongs, like killing snakes with a lot of things. And this is one of those where it's like, I just have to be patient with myself because I'm going to be scared. As I'm writing these things out, I'm going to feel depressed. I'm going to feel, there's a sheet for that, by the way. but I really just want to point out that EDA's 4th step isn't really any different from any other 4th step. Not really. And so if you have experience in other 12-step programs, we're looking at maybe different topics a little bit, and we're going at it from a slightly different angle, but it's basically the same stuff. So I want people to relax about that. Last question we have on this is, how often do you work step 4? And then we can go to questions from the field. So personally, Giselle, how often do you work step 4? Go to questions from the field. So personally, Giselle, how often do you work step 4?
Miss Giselle, for me, I don't know. It varies. Sometimes, it used to be once a year, where I would look back and just do a once a year 10 step. Or if I'm taking care of that little stuff that comes up, I don't have to necessarily do a big old 4-step that often. If I'm doing maintenance along the way. But like with this, this is great timing for me. I had a lot of anger. And I guess for me, if I don't have enough tools at the time, if I'm dealing with many tense issues at the time, and I don't have the tools, you know what? I need to do a 4-step. And I don't have the tools, you know what? I need to do a 4-step because I'm seeing way too many red flags, and I'm not able to let go of this anger, fear, resentment. And so that's when I do, that's when I do another 4-step, but I have to be in touch with me, and and do maintenance and see where I'm at and just feel it out. Maybe it's once a year, maybe it's once every 2 years, just you'll feel it out, and everybody's different. So that's my thought.
Thanks, Giselle. So anybody else on the phone want to speak to how often All right, well, hey, Rebecca, how often do you go ahead. Sorry, I didn't catch your name. Can you repeat?
I'm like having all these problems unmuting tonight. So yeah, no, I think the whole year thing is pretty much, but it's not like I only wait for a year. You know what I mean? But I also, kind of the 10th step kind of covers a lot of that. You know what I mean? So I can kind of gauge if I let life get too busy and I get outside of a written 10th step, and if I'm doing my 10th step in the shower, right? And I'm starting to notice that stuff is not quite right, then I realize that I might have accumulated some stuff and to do a mini 4-step. You know what I mean? Mini 4-step. You know what I mean? And hopefully it's a mini 4-step, right? Hopefully I haven't let 80 things accumulate since the last one because I've been doing regular written inventory. But I think based on the workshop in Chicago last year, and finishing a 4-step and then doing the work now, that's about it. That's about right. So I didn't want to say anything because I'm kind of repeating somebody else, but I agree.
All right. So I really wanted to comment on that for a second, just because I too don't always without doing a 4-step, and it really wasn't necessarily a problem. However, like this year I've gone through like a series of just major changes. And I got to tell you, even though I just did a 4-step when we were going through a workshop in June, I'm doing one now, and my gosh, it's just like all is new and wonderful crap. Oh yeah, well, I didn't get to that one, did I? So that part's really good. And I think I do mini 4-steps, like we do, which is not exactly like the step 10. Step 10, I get to a couple of issues a day because I time box it. It's like 15-20 minutes. I don't want to be writing longer than that, or I'm just going to stop writing altogether. So I try to time box step 10 to a couple of issues, and hopefully they're the most important ones. And then we're supposed to do a spot check inventory throughout the day as we go along. Well, I mostly do that, but there is a lot of stuff that builds up. And so, I do them whenever I'm when I'm really mad. Oh, okay. That's really a great solution. So, there have been years when I've done them like every couple of months, because and those weren't very many years, thank heavens. But honestly, I do them when I need to, which is kind of what I think you're hearing from other folks too. So I know we have a question from somebody that would like to pose it to the panel, and here we go. Here you go, Mary Jo. From somebody that would like to pose it to the panel, and here we go. Here you go, Mary Jo.
Hi, this is Mary Jo. I'm relatively new, 5 months, I think, to EDA. I know that Giselle has mentioned this several times and others. One thing I'm not good on is red flag that actually looks like what that means. I'd love to hear Giselle and others speak to that. How to prevent getting into serious regression, because I'm seeing the flags and taking care of them concurrently.
You know, it depends on what area. Okay, for me, and this is going to be real detailed on this one subject. One area with food in particular with me, I see a red flag. It doesn't happen as much anymore. But this is going to sound weird, but people might relate. This is going to sound weird, but people might relate. When I'm eating, I might not be paying attention, and then I'll catch myself, I'm not touching my fork. If that makes sense. I'm not touching my fork with my teeth, or with my teeth, or with my lips, if that makes, and so that's a red flag for me. I'm not wanting to deal with the food. I'm not wanting to see it. If I catch myself in the kitchen eating at the counter, I'm not wanting to take the time. I'm not wanting to, sometimes I'm rushing because I just got to get out the door. And it depends, you got to see a habit, but I also have to pay attention. That red flag stuff, I have to be paying attention to myself. I have to be paying attention to my surroundings. At work, what do I call it? My negativity is spewing out of me. And I can't stop it. A lot of times that's a red flag for me. It's, I get caught up in the other people, they're spewing their negativity and I'm just joining right in. And I look back and I catch doing, and that's a red flag for me to let myself get involved with their gossip or their negativity, because that is not who I want to be. And that is not who I am. But if I'm in a vulnerable spot, or I'm not seeing things, I'm not wanting to deal with stuff, then I'm going to do that old behavior. And those are red flags for me. It's that old behavior sometimes. Sometimes it's that old behavior that you just kind of catch. And you're like, oh, where'd that come from? That's a red flag. Pay attention to it. A lot of times in the beginning, I didn't pay attention to those things. It's a red flag. Pay attention to it. A lot of times in the beginning, I didn't pay attention to those things. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know it was a red flag. And so you'll know when it's a red flag when you're paying attention. And I can't stress that enough. I have got to pay attention to how I'm feeling, how I'm reacting to me, because I can scare people. I get angry in that mom tone and that scary, and I've scared people. And so that's not good. But I guess that's my answer.
Anybody on the phone want to take that? We deal with them?
Hi, this is Leslie in New York.
Go ahead, Leslie.
Hi. So it's such a great question, and I really appreciate the answers because they help me. Because red flags are, it's funny, I almost see them now as my warning system. It's like the gas gauge on my car. And it's important to pay attention to them because if my gas gauge is saying you're almost empty, I should go get gas. Although I have an electric car, so yay. But it's that. It's like, am I paying attention to my own signs? So an example that just happened today, I was talking about this with some EDA friends, that I noticed myself body checking someone else. And that's the one part of my eating disorder that is still in process, and which means that I was comparing. And then instantly was able to see the red flag and say, okay, wait, what's going on with me right now that this is where my mind is going? Oh, right. I've got this family member in town. I feel stressed about it. I don't want to pay attention to that stress. Like it's like a gift now when I have a level of awareness that when I'm having those thoughts, that it's not about the thing itself. It's a sign that I'm in anxiety. And then it's a sign for me to do some self-care and like fine, you're working through it. It's all going to be okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Leslie. That's a great answer. I love it. And really, one of the key things, we're going to be talking about our homework here shortly. And I want people to really think about this fear thing, because the fear is actually, it is a red flag. And so things like resentment, all of these things are character defects that we write about, are self-pity. When I feel that is a red flag. Okay, so when I'm feeling sideways, anxious, fear, it's really me out of step. When I'm focused on what I'm doing and how I'm serving and how I'm engaging with people and helping them recognize what's good and right about what they're doing, I feel fantastic. I feel like it's like life is wonderful. Grumpy and scared and oh my gosh, I've been there a lot here lately. I feel like I've got the tools to do. It's like there's all kinds of crap going on, and so if I find myself doing those behaviors, and it's not food now, but it's like overwork, or it's not getting enough sleep, and so it's exactly like what Leslie said. It's kind of a gift, because it does give me the ability to focus on the solutions, and the solutions are really about taking care of basics. It's like, okay, so, you're actually not really taking very good care of yourself here, are you? You're allowing yourself to get way into like financial stress. There are things I can do about that. To get way into financial stress. There are things I can do about that. I can talk to my, the situation that's producing the financial stress, and I can plan for and address that. Or I can, there's any of the things that cause me grief, anxiety, a lot of it I can't do anything about, but going through the process of looking at what's causing it is me being an adult. Okay. So that part of taking responsibility and saying, nope, okay, we're going to make a plan here. That just feels fantastic, because the little kid inside of me gets to feel safe. Okay. When the adult in business and putting things in priority order, taking care of basics, which is, all of those basic things are about our ability to just show up for ourselves. And so what does that really mean? It means we sleep, we talk to people, we work on our relationships. That legs of the chair example. So it's like, what am I doing in my, to grow myself emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, or purpose driven? How am I investing in those things? Because if I'm not, I'm regressing. Okay. So if we're working a 4-step, you are investing, just so we're clear on that. All right. So I know we're running out of time. We've got 1 minute left. I wanted to go over. And so the homework for October 25th is to read workshop worksheet page 12 and brainstorm on fear. So everything you're frightened of, just write it all down. Then asterisk the top 10, the ones that you feel the most hot emotion about, and write the fear inventory on those. That's workshop worksheet. Then prep for the remaining inventory sections. Reread Appendix D examples for self-pity, shame, guilt, confusion, frustration, and despair, pages 532 to 543. Reread pages 137 to 140. 146 to 149, and 154 to 158. That started on workshop worksheets, pages 14 to 22. We're going to do those as homework for the next week. Okay, I want to thank everybody for your time and your patience, and I'm really excited to be here going through this process with you. I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you all, and have a wonderful week.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you, Giselle. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.